for the time to be with you this morning. And Lord has blessed me to be here one more time. Since 96, this is my fourth visit to this chapel. Few people asked me, do you have any relatives here? I do have relatives. The reason why they asked me is I'm an unknown person. That is very true. Even though I am serving the Lord since 1977, very few people knows me personally. And but at the very same time, I thank the Lord, even though I'm a stranger, I was welcome here. And I have been told what is the time I have, and also what is the grace period beyond that time. So I will not take more than the time given to me. English is a very difficult language for me. I studied in Kerala University. So many people who studied with me spoke English very fluently, and I looked amazing at them. How could they do this? When I came to the United States, it took 2 years for me to understand. The professors are talking English, so that is my understanding of English. So today also the same way. I have very limited vocabulary and language proficiency. I found that for some people, language is an easy area. For example, I have 4 children. Out of all of them know how to read, write, and speak Malayalam and English. At the very same time, only one person is able to translate from one language to the other. And even in speaking in Malayalam also, I found I have limited vocabulary in expression. At the very same time, the Lord has blessed me with a family. Right now, we are a 4-generation family. My father is 96. My youngest grandchild is 2 years old. Both parents are still alive. My father is still able to manage to attend meeting. My mom has been able to enjoy the life until a year ago with a limited health. Now she is in the bed all the time. So some people asked me, did you come alone or did you come with your wife? So I married in 1972. I started traveling in 1977. Ever since that time, I traveled with the wife until 2011. 2011, she got a new job and she is now in that business. And therefore, she is taking care of that job and I am continuing my travel ministry. And you will understand the job down the road as I finish the speaking. So, my parents also know the Lord and they are fellowshipping with the Christians in the Trivandrum. And I come to know the Lord when I was in college, got interested when I was in high school, and got baptized toward the end of my graduation and started fellowshipping with the saints in my hometown. But I moved from India to United States in 1972. And I returned back in 1979, started a ministry in Alway, Kerala. To 1996, again we came back to USA for helping my children to go to school. But at the very same time, every year, approximately 6 months of time, my wife and I spent in India, traveling to different parts of India and also different parts of the world. And I'm continuing that itinerant ministry even now. All my children come to know the Lord. They are all married now. God has blessed our family with 15 grandchildren. And 6 of my grandchildren also come to know the Lord and got baptized. And they are all attending local Brethren Assembly and very active for the Lord in that assembly. The scripture requires us to be responsible to our parents because they have worked hard, very hard, to bring us up, educate us, get us married and settled. And they have done that without any 401k planning, without any social security planning, without any real estate investment. They invested everything in us. Scripture says, so it is the responsibility of the children and grandchildren. Especially in the Malayalam version it says, Putra Pautranmar. Because anybody is here not from India? Oh, okay, so you understand Malayalam, yeah. Not just children, male son and male grandchildren. Not Putri Pautrimar, Putra Pautrimar. So, when I take my responsibility, who will also come along with me? Naturally, my wife come along with me. And that's why I said she has a job now. So she managed the nursing home. She is the nurse in the nursing home and financial administration in the nursing home. And she purchased the medicines and the groceries and supplies for the nursing home. And she has the shift 24 hours, 7 days, no vacation and no salary. And, also in the book of Proverbs, we were told wise women and foolish women. What is the sign or a criteria for us to understand who is a wise woman? The woman who built her house. The woman who takes that responsibility has a great job. And also it is a hard job. As I said, today my wife has the normal duty and along with caring my mother. She has to lift her 3 or 4 times a day from the bed to let her sit on the chair and take a bath. And she has to apply oil massage on her body and give bath to her. And then put cloth on her, clean the room. But at the very same time, she is responsible for that. She is also responsible for the hospitality who come to see my parents and who come to our home, who are evangelists who are passing through the city. Plus, 3 times a meal, maybe 4 times, you have to cook. It is not like you heating up the TV dinner. Even today in India, you have to almost cook from the scratch. If you choose, you can do something without that, but basically you have to cook from the scratch. So 3-4 meals a day and cook and clean and wash and do the laundry, keep the house. It is a busy work, hard work, but it is possible. And it is possible. That is why Scripture says, your wife shall be like a fruitful vine with your house. And also, excellent wife is worth far above jewels. And she is a gain to her husband, and she is a working person above her routine work of the home. And also, she do the shopping very carefully. Not only she has the credit card and the cash, but also plenty coupons in her hand. Also, she look around and find where is the orchards where she can pick fruits and can and cook and keep it for the winter. And she prepare, she get up early in the morning and prepare the food for the household. And she saves, and also she saves and buy the fields so she can do some farming in that field. She knows what is vanity and what is deceitfulness. So she fear the Lord. And her children bless her, and husband praises her. So that is, and also she has a job teaching younger women to love their husband, to love their children, and be workers at home, bear children, and keep the house and show the hospitality. So this job of building a home is a hard labor, and it's a full-time job. And that is why Scripture says, she is like a fruitful vine within your house. Certain subjects are difficult to teach, but easy to practice. I believe homemaking for the wives is difficult to teach because we have come to a time in our life without two income we cannot make living. But I can tell you something from my experience. My mother was an employed person. I experienced difficulty of her employment. Then there was also some benefit. I was able to study in college because she was employed. My wife never worked outside the house. Therefore, we had limitations. There are many times when children come home, before they sit in the table, they know what is the dish going to come. Because there's a papaya tree on the back rented property. So they know the mung beans and papaya are definitely there. But that never bothered. In fact, all my children are healthy today. They are able to get up in the morning and go to work and come back home and again do the work in the house. And they have 5 children, 4 children, 3 children like that. They can care for them. So the papayas never gave them any difficulty in growing up, either for schooling or for making a home. But and now I have children with their spouses struggling to work or not to work. Because they have a pressure. All the children, my boys married, and there is no pressure to my daughters-in-law. But my daughter went to house, there is a pressure. So they have struggles. So they sometimes decide to be home and sometimes decide to go to work. And unfortunately, they budget with the income from 2 sources. But I also know, knowing all my children, how much they make, how much they have. But let me tell you something. I have 3 boys. My second son is the short in height and stature, physically limited because of a car accident, and less educated means simply a degree, no graduate work. And he is the only one person who works in the home and no other source of income. But he is the person who has no debt. And also he always found time and resource to entertain visitors. And every time respond to me when I write a request for any people in India with a specific need instantly and also heavily. All other children makes much more than him. An IT person with a spouse who is a medical doctor, I don't need to tell how much they make. But when you send a request to them to help an evangelist, they are the one who are responding last and also least. So the question is, how are you managing what you have is more than worrying about how many sources of income you have. A wise woman build her house. Now, it's a very hard work. And when we look into the book of Ruth, we see how Ruth worked out that responsibility. In chapter 4 of book of Ruth, verses 14, 15 and 16. We read, and the women said unto Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age. For thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. And Naomi took the child, and laid it in her bosom, and became a nurse unto it. In this passage, Ruth was introduced as a loving daughter-in-law. Now, who is saying this? Her mother or her sister? Neither of them. The neighbors. They were saying Ruth loved her mother-in-law and also helped her mother-in-law. How much? Better than her own 7 sons. All those 7 sons, what they can do to their mother has been done by this one woman. And why it is possible and how it became possible. That is what we should understand. When we read chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, we are able to understand how this is possible. First of all, she understood. She is the responsible person in this house to build that house. In the same chapter, after the marriage of Ruth and Boaz, the elders has blessed them, saying, May the Lord bless you like Rachel and Leah, who built the Israel. The woman who came into your house. That is not her house, but that house she came. Now onward, after she arrived in the home by marriage, now onward, she is the responsible person to build that house. She understood that. She understood not when the blessing came, she understood that even before. How is that possible? It is possible because when a person gives himself to the God according to his plan, then God will reveal and give the insight to that person, the purpose of God. See, the law received by Moses tells to the nation of Israel about giving 10%. But Abraham gave 10% long before the law. Where did he learn that? He didn't read the book of Moses. Because it's the plan of God, therefore he knew it. And not only she understood this is my responsibility, but also she has been strengthened by God to do that responsibility. Without a strength, without the wisdom from God, it is totally impossible to do that. Because as I said, I'm a second generation for fourth generation family. I have seen, as growing up, my mother being a daughter-in-law. Then my wife became a daughter-in-law. Then she became a mother. Then she became a grandmother. And she became a mother-in-law, because I have seen from my mother, through my wife, and to the children, the struggle of being a daughter-in-law and also being a mother-in-law. So, in order to fulfill the responsibility, mere knowledge of who I am is not enough. But also, you and I need a strength from God Himself to do that. So, not only Ruth understood her responsibility, but also Ruth was able to come to know the Lord. You remember in chapter 1, we meet Naomi there. We read about Elimelech, Mahlon and Chilion, but we don't meet them. We meet only Naomi. The time we meet her, she is a widow. Not only she is a widow, she was worried and responsible for another 2 more widows. And she was very discouraged, depressed woman without a hope. You know what she says? She told, "For the hand of the Lord has gone forth against me." And then she said, "Lord has witnessed against me. The Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. And the Almighty has afflicted me." She can only think how she has been struggling and suffering. And ever since she's left Bethlehem, she is only going down. Lost her husband, lost her children, now have the burden of caring for 2 younger widows. In all these things brought into her mind the difficulty and saying, she at the very same time knew, if you ask her, who is God? What kind of person is he? Then she will say, God is kind. She knows that in her head. Because when the daughters-in-law were talking with her, said, "You have been kind to me and to the dead, and the Lord's kindness be with you." So she knew God is kind person. So that kindness will be with Ruth and Orpha, but not with me. If the kindness is with me, how come all these things happen? So she is thinking that way. So she is a very discouraged woman. But at the very same time, even in that discouragement, she is thinking how I can be a help to my daughters-in-law. So she thought, it is foolishness for them to come with me, because they are Moabitess women. As a result of that, the Jewish people never marry them. And I am not able to provide husbands for them. So it is best for them is to return to their parents and get married and settled there. So she is persuading them, forcing them, and finally Orpha agreed. Okay, I will go. I wanted to come with you. The three of them are walking toward Bethlehem. This conversation is not in the home, it is on the road. So those two women were walking with Naomi, and then finally Orpha said, now it makes sense to me what you are saying, therefore I will obey you, but I am very sad to leave you. She was weeping and embracing and hugging, and then finally she gone. Mother-in-law was telling her daughter-in-law to go to your parents. Once Orpha left, Naomi made an interesting remark. Your sister has gone to her father and unto her God. It's interesting to observe that there. She didn't say, you go back to Chemosh. She only told her to go back to your father and mother and get married. But when she left, the same woman made a statement. Not only she had gone back to her her parents, but also unto the God. Now, why are you clinging to me? Now you also go. At that time, Ruth made a profound statement. Your God is my God. Your people is my people. Your house is my house. She didn't stop there. She said, when you die and bury, after my death, I will be also buried there. She says that, where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. So she understood, I am the responsible person to build this house. There's now nothing to build there. This old lady is going to die sooner. Then she is going to be alone. And she has no expectation at all to getting married, because she understood in her head very clearly there is no chance for that. Yet she knew, this is the house I came. There's nothing look forward. At the very same time, God has placed me in this house to build this house, and therefore in order to do that, I have to go with this lady. What kind of lady? In a modern way, say a cranky lady. But she was not bothered of all those things. She was only concerned how to provide something for this person, how to be a help to this woman. And she walked up to the Bethlehem with this. And Naomi really realized now, there's no logic, no persuasion, no force can make her to go back, because she is looking to God of Israel. And she wants to be with his people. And in order to do that, she has to come back to Bethlehem. But we have to realize, at that time, God has worked with his people in a particular geography. Even though he has been extending his mercy to all the people, but it came through the nation of Israel. And therefore, to worship God, to love God, to respect God, to be known as a people of God, you have to be in that land. Because the tabernacle, the Levitical system, the law, offering, festivals, worship, everything has to be in a particular location, in a particular land. When you are away from that place, you are unable to do all these things. And now this girl has come to an understanding. The God of Israel is the true living God. And therefore, I need to go with this mother-in-law. Because I am responsible for this house. And I know the Lord is live. And He has visited His people and provided food. So I am going to be with her and help her. In chapter 2, verse 2, we see an interesting thing. This Ruth, there, asking chapter 2, verse 2, please let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain, after one in whose sight I may find favor. There she is making two important decisions. One is asking the approval of her mother-in-law to leave the house to go to the field and glean and bring food. Another thing, she is saying, I want to go to a particular field. What is the quality of that field? Where I can find grace. In that time of the history, it is very difficult. Because people don't like, the farmers, the landlords do not like people coming, the orphans coming, poor people coming, foreigners coming, widows coming to glean. They chase them away, they hurt them, they will insult them, and no encouragement, but lot of discouragement and opposition to do that. But she is asking Lord to a field where she would be treated fairly, accepted well, have the opportunity to glean. And also, it's interesting, she was asking the permission of her mother-in-law to go and glean. Both mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were hungry. So she has to go and glean. And that's it's a factor of understanding. But still, she is asking. And also, she is asking to a woman, an unreasonable woman. A depressed woman, a disappointed woman who is not able to think properly. And naturally, my mother only went up to 4th grade, and after the 4th grade, she flunked that. My grandfather told, enough. Now you can come with me to plant tapioca. My wife finished pre-degree in those days, not plus 2, it's a pre-degree, and went to degree course. Her parents and my father decided for the marriage. That was the end of her education. My daughters-in-law have graduate work. So the word mouse to these 3 generations has 3 different meanings. My mother don't understand that word. And but she may, from grandchildren or somebody might heard that word and so think about the creature run around the house. My wife think both ways. First she think about the creature, then she think, oh no, it is talking about something, laptop, computer. That is all her knowledge. My daughters-in-law, they not only know what is a mouse, they can click it and find anything from Google. And therefore, they don't need any help from my wife or my mother to find a solution they are looking for. Therefore, they are able to make an independent decision with a knowledge bank. But Ruth depended on her mother-in-law and her consent even at the time of no food at the home. She has respected her mother-in-law. That is why she was asking, can I go? She was seeking the permission of her mother-in-law to leave the house to go to the field and glean. In other words, to go to the ration shop to buy the kerosene oil and sugar and rice. If you don't buy that, no food in the home. There's no need of asking a permission. Only thing, taking the bag and the card and say, I'm going. That's what we need to say. Mother-in-law will be happy. But even at that time, this woman is different. She understands, my husband is no longer here. And therefore, he cannot lead me. So I need a guidance. And God has placed this mother-in-law for that blessing. And therefore, I need her approval. So she's asking. And when she asked, her mother-in-law said, go, my daughter. It is, younger people are in position to understand contemporary things better than a previous generation. But you have to also realize those people of previous generation has some wisdom the younger people cannot have. And so she sought the counsel. Ruth has trusted the God of Israel. And she knew God is going to reward her and wages be full from the Lord. Because under whose wings she came to seek refuge. A full day of work, she found water to drink, which is meant for the workers. She found lunch for her, which is meant for the workers. She found comfort and relief from the people who are working there, as well as from the owner of the field. And she found easy gleaning soon from that field. As a result of that, at the end of the day, she was able to glean an ephah. That means 10 measures of barley. The gracious, compassionate, rich, mighty rich Boaz generously gave only 6 measures of grain. But the Lord has given to her 10 measures of grain. But that didn't come easily, but it came with a 1 day of labor. In a very difficult situation, she found everything in favorable situation. Because she sought the God of Israel and asked from him a field where she was able to find grace. So she sought her mother-in-law and she sought the God of Israel. Because of that mindset and submission and submitting herself under the leadership of her mother-in-law and to the God of Israel, she has been able to bring back to her home 1 ephah of barley. And we don't have a record what all the things took place, but I am thinking, she brought the food also, leftover lunch, and gave it to the mother-in-law, and probably preparing the meal and getting ready. And when you are home all day and your spouse is in the office all day, when they come back, you like to know everything in the office. But the person who worked in the office, especially the person who worked in the factory, want a cup of tea and a couch and a newspaper, nothing else. You are not eager to give every answer to the questions. The other person is very eager to know every details of the day. So one person will be asking questions, the other person will be giving one-word answer or kind of some yes, like that, but nothing more. But Ruth is different. Ruth gave a detailed explanation. In that process of conversation, the name of Boaz came. Immediately, this depressed woman became a joyful woman. Discouraged woman became a courageous person with the boldness. Disappointed person now has a hope. She is saying, your marriage is going to get arranged soon. Because she knew Boaz is a redeemer. And therefore, so a person, in her mind, this marriage is an impossibility. But now it came a reality. So this has brought her up. In that time, she was saying, not only God is merciful to you, but also He is merciful to the living. Before, He will be kind to you, not to me, because His hand is against me. He is dealing bitterly toward me. He has taken my husband and my children. I have nothing left, only burden and responsibility. Now she's saying, God is kind to the dead and to the living. Listen, what kind of counseling is that? This Ruth, when she took a master's degree at the University of Bethlehem for a psychology, no psychology there, only simple hard work and simple respect, simple submission, and being available to do whatever is needed to bring food home to this discouraged mother-in-law. Her ministry and hard work. If you think properly, what is the problem in the kitchen? Most cases are very simple thing. Your mother-in-law has a particular part for making yogurt, and you go and take that pot for making fish curry. So what happens? She yells at you. And when she yells at you, you may yell back or you may keep silent. But it doesn't matter. You have been worried now. And that day, when you take your lunch or your mother-in-law take their lunch to the table, the face will be different. Personal preferences, personal taste is the main reason of conflict. Another reason of the conflict in the kitchen is who do what work. Breakfast is over, lunch is over, dinner is already ready. Around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, all you have to do is get the dinner and wash the dish. That's all you need to do. Here comes a chayan. That's a Malayalam word for that. With a bag in his fish on the thing. Immediately, all the women in the kitchen know somebody has to clean this and get it ready. No refrigerator in those days. So, mother-in-law is there, sister-in-law is there, daughter-in-law is there. Guess who's going to get the job? Nobody wants to get the scales on their dress or their hand or their face or stink their hand, smell their hand. But somebody has to do it. The dad will bring the bag and say, oh, I got some good fish, good deal. So prepare it. The mother-in-law will call the daughter-in-law. She say, She knew what it is, but she pretend like she don't know anything about it. She is thinking in her heart, how come I have to do this all the time? Why she cannot do it? And if the mother asks her to do it, she will say, tell Kochama. And then she say, I'm the one always do all this kind of messy job. So here the problem is there, not willing to do the work. Not willing to build your house. See, this is your house, not her house, this is your house. She thinks it is her house, but it's not her house. And if you are a wise woman, then you know, even before your father-in-law bring that into the kitchen, you will have the pot and the water and the knife, and you can take the fish, and there is no problem. Nobody will fight with you to give me that. And you will be happy, they will be happy, dinner will be happy, generation will be happy. And that is how this home worked. And finally, they got married. The Lord blessed them with a child. And that is the time the neighbors came and said, your daughter-in-law who loves you. The love is not, many times we think love in terms of feeling. But the love in the Bible is not a feeling. It is a reality. It is an experience. It is a work. Because as Paul revealed what is a love, in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4 to 8, it says very clearly. Now I am going to use the word Ruth everywhere when I see the word love. Now I will read that portion like this. It says love is patient, but I am going to put Ruth. Ruth is patient because she has the love of God. Ruth is kind and is not jealous. Ruth does not brag and is not arrogant. Ruth does not act unbecomingly, does not seek her own, is not provoked, does not take into account a wrong suffered. That is the most difficult one. The other things, some personality have naturally, other things can be done. But taking not into account the wrong suffered is the difficult one. Something I have not done, but I am accused of did that work. So somebody has told about me false information. And that's very difficult to swallow. The moment you see that person, think that person, immediately thought come to your mind is how that person has done harm to you, even though you never did any harm to that person, or you never even intended any harm to that person. But when you have the love, then only you can do that. When I was reading about this verse, and coming to this place, I found I need to correct something in my own family, with my own children. I came to United States this time with a definite plan not to visit all of my children. I'm not going into details of why all that, but that has been changed. I called the last 2 days ago and made an appointment to the house I decided not to visit back. That's the love. Because when I come to this place, I realized it's not. I can have a lot of reasons why I shouldn't do it, but all those reasons have no value if you are controlled by the Spirit, because the fruit of the Spirit is love. and does not rejoice in the unrighteousness, but rejoice with the truth. Bears all things. Ruth hope all things. Ruth endures all things. Ruth never fails. So that is love. And Ruth is known for that quality. And that quality in her is better than her own children. 6 times better. As a result of that, Naomi is still living in the home with Boaz and Ruth. Naomi is not visiting that house. Naomi is not bringing some apple pie to the grandchildren and going back. Or sending a Christmas card. I love you. I remember you. I think about you. No, she is there. But also in chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, everything is decided by Naomi. Ruth only approved her decision wisely, with wisdom, and submitted herself to her mother-in-law. In chapter 4, there is no conversation between Ruth and Naomi. I wondered why that is. Then I began to realize, now Ruth is under her husband. He is there to lead her. And therefore, Naomi is not in need of coming with any counsel. But she has a different ministry now, a different responsibility. And that is the most significant responsibility of the grandparents. Now, what did she do? She became a nurse to Obed. She became a nurse to Obed. That means she not only stayed so far, she is still staying and continued to stay. And Obed has a son called Jesse, and Jesse had a son called David. And when you look into the life of David, you see the richness of the investment of this mother-in-law and this daughter-in-law. In other words, the mother and the grandmother, how much they have influenced the generation. You know, the whole nation of Israel saw the Philistine Goliath as a strong soldier. Said he was a soldier from his youth, an undefeatable soldier, strong and mighty soldier with a powerful weapon, nuclear weapon. That is what they were thinking. And Saul, Abner, the whole army always thought, we are totally unable to defeat this person. Not only that, every time he come and make the challenge for the last 40 days, they were always saying, look, this man is insulting us. So we have found a solution for that. Whoever defeat this man, our king will give his daughter money and land without tax. So you became son-in-law of the king and also a wealthy man in the nation. What do you have to do? Only one thing, to defeat that man. Everybody likes the prize, but nobody has the courage to face the prize. So everybody is saying, why don't you do it? You'll get this. So finally David heard about that, but he wasn't asking anything in detail about that. But then, what are you talking? Then he also heard the challenge. The moment he heard, his response is totally different. He is saying, who is this uncircumcised man to challenge the armies of the living God? So his understanding is different. All the nation understood one way, that is, he is an undefeatable enemy, insulting us. But David did not see him as an undefeatable enemy, but an uncircumcised person. Not only that, also he heard the shout and said, he is insulting the armies of the living God. In one sense, both people are saying the same thing, insulting us. But the way they understood is, people generally understood as, his insult is against me. But David understood, no, his insult is against my God. That's their thing. Of course, it is him also. Because armies of the living God. So, it is against the people. But who is this people? The God of Israel. So, he is saying, this man is insulting our God. Therefore, he should be defeated. And the God who helped me to kill the lion and the bear will also help me to kill this person. Because King Saul gave his weapon, an armory, and said, now you're ready to go. And he put that a uniform and everything. He couldn't make even walk. And then Saul said, he has a good idea, but it's not going to work out. Then he said, sir, that's not the situation. I know how God is strong, because he said, I am strong, and I have heard him that 2 times. Lord said 1 time, but I heard him 2 times, and therefore I know I'm going to hear that again 1 more time. And the Philistines looked at him and said, what a fun. Are you coming to me? You thinking that I'm a dog with a shepherd's rod? He didn't see the pebbles in his bag. He said, no, I am coming against you in the name of the God of Israel, whom you defy. So David's perception of the situation is unique, and also honoring the Lord and exalting the Lord and trusting the Lord and depending on the Lord. Now, where did he get all this information? It came from the home, from a mother-in-law who began to experience the grace of God in her life and turned herself to the plan of God. And all this happened with a daughter-in-law and her hard labor and willing to suffer and struggle. When she came to Bethlehem, she did not come with any idea. Mother-in-law says all these things, but I know she has property there, rubber plantations, everything washed away by rain. But before that, that's valuable piece of property. And therefore, I will have inheritance. I will be able to... No, she was not thinking any of those. She was only thinking one thing. I want to be with the people of God and with God. And I want to worship Him. And I want to help my mother-in-law because I have been brought to this home. I came to this home. This is my house. I want to be wise and build this house. So that decision, only that decision brought her. But when she came, the God of Israel, who rewarded her with a mighty, wealthy man as her husband, a godly man. So Boaz and Ruth and Naomi worked together to raise Obed. As a result of that heritage was relationship with the Lord brought to the David. And David came to a time in the history of Israel, a challenging time. A time God is looking a man according to His heart to do a ministry for the people of Israel. Because God wanted to establish a throne for Lord Jesus Christ. And he found that person is David. So remember, grandparents has a great responsibility to build grandchildren. And daughters-in-law have a tremendous responsibility to build the house that require a lot of hard work. You know, my wife is not a young person of 30 or 40. She is late 60s now. And she is still caring her mother-in-law. Last 7 years, that is the full-time job she is doing. Along with that, she attends sisters' meeting. She speaks in sisters' meeting. And every opportunity she has, she will give literature to the gospel, literature to the people. And she was eager to share gospel. She has gone to the neighbors number of times with the help of other sisters. Very recently, she has gone to the hospital with all this, in the midst of all these things. And always she is happy for people to come home. You know, it is a work, but at the very same time, there's a joy in it. This morning she called and said, Saturday, 11 people came. They all came for a marriage in Trivandrum. And after the marriage, they wanted to come our home to visit my father and my mother and also my wife. They all came together. And it was a very joyful time for her. They came and they into the room of my mother and they sang number of songs and prayed and had a tea and banana fry and everything. They have gone back. Work is there, but also a reward is there. You know, I travel a lot. God willing, I am reaching home on 15th morning, 3 o'clock. And 16th Sunday worship meeting. Immediately after the worship meeting, I am going to go to Alapi to meet many of the people who have been suffering from flood. Then I come home, I'm 18th, I am going to Punjab. So I basically visit home to do the laundry and get my next packet. And she manages all those things. It's a hard work, but it's a very rewarding work. You know, Abraham lived in the tent with Isaac and Jacob. So there you see 3 generations. Moses told, you have to teach your children and your grandchildren. And then we see that in the life of Timothy, what he has learned from his mother and grandmother equipped him, once he came to know the Lord, to do the service of the Lord. So, dear ones, we have daughters growing up. We have to teach our girls, this is your job. Yes, you grew up here and you are my dear child, but now onward, your house is over there. That is your house. You have to build that house. And when the daughters-in-law come to your home, you have to be a great help. Raise the children. Not that they can do a job outside the house, but they can do their job in the house. And I said very beginning, this is a difficult subject to speak, an easy subject to do. Because I know you have so many questions in your mind, because I have lived long enough in this country. I cannot answer all the questions, but I know one thing. It's easy, not too easy to speak, but easy to do. So may the Lord bless you all with your children, with your daughters-in-law, son-in-law, and your grandchildren, and with your father-in-law and mother-in-law. Thank you. God bless you all.